In the previous episode, you heard a lot of different opinions in regards to the major trade that took place that saw Timo Meier officially join the New Jersey Devils. However, we need to hear from the San Jose Sharks perspective. So joining me on today's episode of Locked On Devils is Corey Masisak of The Athletic. He used to cover the New Jersey Devils for The Athletic before switching over to San Jose. So he has a unique perspective on the full matter. There's a lot to talk about in today's episode. Buckle up, everybody.
You're Locked On Devils, your daily podcast on the New Jersey Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, this is Bryce Salvador, and you're Locked On Devils with Trey Matthews.
Elliott scores! Oh, Stevens stepped up, nailed it. Brodor's got the puck. What a shot. The Devils win the Stanley Cup.
Alrighty now, what is up, New Jersey? Welcome back to the Locked On Devils podcast here on Locked On Network. I'm your host, college hockey play-by-play announcer, Devils writer for Pucks and Pitchforks, and also part-time credential media member, Trey Matthews. I am joined alongside San Jose Sharks writer for The Athletic, Corey Masisak. Now, does that name sound familiar? It should, because a few years ago, he covered the New Jersey Devils for The Athletic, but since then, like I just mentioned, he's moved on to the San Jose Sharks organization, and he can provide an interesting perspective for both Devils fans and Sharks fans. Corey, long time no here. You're a friend of the show. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, last time we spoke, you were once again covering the Devils for The Athletic, and a big blockbuster deal yesterday for New Jersey Devils. They were able to get Timo Meier. So I can't imagine how hectic it might have been for you to just basically cover this throughout the entirety of the year, maybe last year, whatever the case might be. So take me back to yesterday when everything was going down. What was the process like?
Yeah, to be honest, it's something I've thought about the last, since yesterday. I can't tell really if this trade was weird to cover because it's the first time that two teams that I've covered in the past have made a big trade like this. And so I was kind of talking to people on both sides, or if this was just a really weird trade in general. It was just, look, obviously the Devils have been linked to Timo Meier for weeks now at this point. And it sounds, just from what both of the GMs said last night, they were really talking about him together for weeks. And so, just in the days leading up to it, I can't remember now if it was 2 days ago or 3 days ago. I had, pretty good reason to believe that the Devils were, either the favorites or were just straight up just going to get him. And so, there were a lot of other teams involved, but the Devils always had the most kind of goodies that they could offer the Sharks. And obviously the Devils were very motivated to get him, and it seems like he's going to be a great fit there. And so, yeah, it just, it all came down. Yesterday was kind of crazy. It was pretty early here in the day when it was clear that, that he was going to New Jersey. And then there was kind of a long delay everybody trying to figure out what else was in the trade. And yesterday, there were people kind of inside the league, around the league, but not with the two teams or sort of connected to the teams that they just didn't know. And so some people had heard one thing and other people had heard another thing. And it was definitely an interesting, different kind of experience than your typical trade.
Based on your recollections and also insight, were the San Jose Sharks close to making a deal that involved Timo Meier with a different team? Because you mentioned that there were a lot of teams interested. So some teams that come to mind were the Carolina Hurricanes, but they decided to bow out. Then the Toronto Maple Leafs, they elected to go for Ryan O'Reilly. Then Barbashev made his way to the Vegas Golden Knights, another team that sparked the interest of possibly getting Timo Meier, despite them having no prospects and also just having money up to their, in terms of depth, to their eyeballs, because I don't know how they would be able to afford them. But digressing a little bit, the Vegas Golden Knights were also somewhat interested in Timo Meier. And obviously the New Jersey Devils, they see that the New York Islanders are making deals. They see that the Boston Bruins are making deals. They see that the New York Rangers are making deals. So it was their turn to make a deal. But there were rumors saying that Tom Fitzgerald informed Mike Grier saying, before you accept any other deals for Timo Meier, give us a call and we'll try to up the ante. So were the San Jose Sharks close to sending Timo Meier to a different team, or was New Jersey really just the main focus?
I don't think they were ever I don't think they were ever that close with another team. I think like Pierre LeBrun from The Athletic reported today that basically Carolina wouldn't put their best their best prospect Russian defenseman into any deals. I think they offered something like 5 or 6 pieces similar to what the Devils might have offered, but they're quite frankly, the Hurricanes prospect pool isn't quite as deep as the Devils. So once the Russian guy wasn't available, Nishkinin, then I think the Devils had another Russian defenseman in mind that they liked. Or I'm sorry, the Sharks. Yeah, that might not be the last time that I do that. But anyway, I think I know Vegas was definitely interested. St. Louis had checked in. I think Toronto.
See, St. Louis wouldn't have made any sense because it's just like you dealt away Ryan O'Reilly, you dealt away Vladimir Tarasenko. Yes, you have all those draft picks, but at the same time, aren't they in a rebuild stage? So even though the St. Louis Blues sparked some interest, I was just like, there's no way that they want to take on Timo Meier unless they're trying to rush their rebuild.
Yeah, that's the thing. Doug Armstrong doesn't rebuild. Like I think that's what he was basically trying to do. He was basically trying to say, I'm going to trade these two 31-year-old guys, get first-round picks for them, and then turn around and trade for some 26-year-olds instead of trading for 19-year-olds and draft picks. So I do think I think the Blues were definitely interested, and I think if for whatever reason if the Devils' offer wasn't good enough, or if the Sharks had just said, hey, we're going to wait until the summer, I think the Blues kind of would have become the number one, like, hey, they might get them team because like I said, it's interesting. I mean, I've talked about it with a couple other people. It is kind of interesting what the Blues are trying to do. Like maybe more teams should try to do that instead of just yo-yoing from like we're all the way in to okay, we're all the way out and completely rebuilding. They're trying to like kind of do the middle thing.
So obviously you cover the Sharks for The Athletic, and I'm sure you've had some discussions behind the scenes. What was the asking price like from Mike Grier? Because we see all these reports saying like they want a prospect, they want a roster player. We'll talk about what they got for the Devils momentarily, but I just want to hear your insight in regard to like what was the true asking price? What would have been like the true selling point to get Timo Meier?
Well, I mean, look, there was I wrote, and it was 4 weeks ago that I wouldn't say that. Let's just say that I wrote that the first guy that Mike Grier was going to ask for was Dawson Mercer, and there's obviously been a whole lot of discussion on social media about Dawson Mercer and whether or not he's
about that
untouchable and all this. So like this kind of how these things go. Where like you look at every trade that's been made for a player like Timo Meier, whether it's like Mark Stone or Max Pacioretty, Bo Horvat, like just all these like really, really good players. Like it's really hard to get a player like Dawson Mercer, in a deal like that. Like it's really like the best young player or prospect that's been traded in like the last 10 or 11 years in a deal like at the deadline like this was Philip Forsberg. And he was traded for it was just like out of the blue. He was traded for Martin Erat, he is not on that level. And everybody around the league was like, it was kind of like the Tanner Jeannot trade last night. Like people were like, wait, what just happened? So every time there's like a big name on the market, people, and then look, even as of yesterday morning or the day before, somebody, a source inside the league still thought that Dawson Mercer was in play for this trade. It turned out he's not in it. And now look, nobody directly asked last night, like, hey, when did they say no on Dawson Mercer, or when did they say no on Luke Hughes or anybody else who could have been in the trade? So look, I know that the Sharks definitely wanted a high end prospect, they wanted a first round pick, they wanted another high pick, and then kind of look at what they got, and then look at the fact that the Hurricanes offered 5 or 6 pieces too. It seemed like they definitely wanted, like basically 2 high-end things and then some other kind of quantity to fill out the deal. Look, if the Devils had offered a better player than Shakir, maybe they would have taken less. Maybe it would have just been a player and a pick or something like that. But this is where they're going, and they want to they have like want to replenish the prospect pool, and they want to try to turn this thing around eventually.
Yeah, so let's talk about what the San Jose Sharks got in exchange for Timo Meier. So they get the 2023 first round selection from the New Jersey Devils. Obviously, that was always going to be in play no matter what the circumstance was. They get a conditional 2024 first round selection. However, I always say, I said in my previous episode that it's a highly protected second round pick because a lot of circumstances would have to go in order for that to become a first round draft pick. So like if the Devils make the Eastern Conference Finals, but they completely flop next year, that is a top 10 protected first round pick. So if the Devils go back to their losing ways like they were last year, they're still going to retain that first round pick. And in order for it to become a first round pick and go to the San Jose Sharks, the Devils would have to make the Eastern Conference Finals this year and next year. So I say that's just a heavily protected second round pick. But digressing a little bit, you get Shakir Mukhamadullin, who's playing in the KHL. You get Fabian Zetterlund. Fabian Zetterlund was the only current NHL player involved in this deal that went to the San Jose Sharks. Nikita Ohotuk. Ohotuk has had a cup of coffee in the NHL, and he's a big body, very physical. And I personally liked it when he was playing with the Devils because I said, like, he can, yes, he's not going to score. Yes, he's not really the best defenseman out there. But at the same time, his job is to assert himself and basically play that enforcer type of role. And he's not afraid to throw hands, especially in the AHL. And then you get Andreas Johnson. That's more of a salary dump. And the 2024 seventh round selection. So we can talk about what the San Jose Sharks got. But let's first talk about what they didn't get. So Luke Hughes, Shimon Nemets, Dawson Mercer, Alexander Holtz, and Yegor Sharangovich. Why didn't the San Jose Sharks demand for at least one of those players from the Devils? Do you have any word on that?
Well, I mean, look, I know that, like, let's put it this way. Alexander Holtz's name was out there a lot for this trade as well.
I thought he was guaranteed to be in this deal.
Not everybody in the NHL believes that Alexander Holtz is a better prospect than Shakir Mukhamadullin on what is today, February 27th, 2023. Look, he was drafted very high. He had an incredible pedigree coming out of juniors. Look, I remember watching him playing against Jack Hughes in the under 18 tournament, and it was like, I'm there to watch Jack because the Devils had the first round pick, and the Team Sweden had these two kids, Alexander Holtz and Lucas Raymond, and it was like, holy crap, these guys are going to be amazing. And Alex's development has stalled a little bit. He had a pretty good year in the AHL last year. He hasn't necessarily broken through this year. So I don't know. There are definitely Sharks fans who kind of rattled off some of the same names that you did, and I think there are some Sharks fans who would say they should have gotten Alexander Holtz instead of Shakir. There's also the fact that Alexander Holtz and William Eklund are buddies. That's been a thing for a long time. And so I don't know if necessary. I don't know if for sure. I don't want to say, I can't say anything for certain on that because people have been very wishy-washy about whether or not the Sharks wanted one or the other, or maybe the Devils didn't want to give up one or the other. But I just don't. I think it's not fair to say right now that Holtz is definitely a better prospect than Shakir. I mean, even like one of our prospect guys, Corey Proman, has ranked Mukhamadullin ahead of Holtz as recently as this year. So yeah, no, but those other guys, you're right. Like I don't think Luke was
Luke Hughes and Shimon Nemets were essentially off the table.
Yeah, and that was I think Nemec was like the first guy that Sharks fans were like, hey, well maybe I was like, no, nobody trades.
My thing was
number 2 pick in the draft in this kind of trade, right?
Right. My thing is like, look, this is why greed is one of the 7 deadly sins and it goes for both ways because on the Devils end, it's just like, look, you can't be protecting so many players. So you want to protect Shimon Nemets, you want to protect Luke Hughes, and now you want to protect Dawson Mercer. The San Jose Sharks, especially for the services of Timo Meier. And quite honestly, had he been extended, I think Mike Greer is well within his rights to demand for one of those players, saying like, okay, you have him long term. That's a given. Give us at least one of those three names. And then for the others, Alexander Holtz, I thought, like I said, he was for sure going to be a goner. And then for Yegor Sharangovich, it's just like he's streaky. He's a wild card. He doesn't seem like he does well outside of Jack Hughes's line. So it was just like Yegor Sharangovich could have just been a filler in this hypothetical deal. But yeah, but on the Devils side of things, like I feared that they were protecting too many players. And it's just like, you got to sacrifice maybe one of them. I don't know. Like I had a bad feeling in my stomach.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, look, but I do think that the biggest thing that they had in their favor is that we just named all these guys, right? And so we named one player from Carolina that they said no, that we know that the Hurricanes said no on, right? Their best prospect. And in theory, look, if the Sharks didn't get Dawson Mercer from the Devils, it's pretty clear that they weren't going to get Seth Jarvis from the Hurricanes either, which was another kind of similar player along those lines. But my point is that we just named 5 or 6, top young players and prospects for the Devils. Like the Hurricanes' second best prospect is another defenseman named Scott Morrow. He's pretty similar to Shakir, and again, like one like prospect service might rate one or the other higher, but they're kind of in the same territory. And so that's kind of the point, is like, if the Hurricanes were the runners up in this and their second best prospect was basically about the same, or maybe the Sharks preferred Shakir more, then the Devils were able to kind of take, the top, let's say 3 or 4 guys, and just say, hey, look, and that was kind of the thing, like whenever we were, sort of, trying to figure out like who might the Blues trade or who might the Maple Leafs trade. Like all of those teams have like 1 or 2 guys that are in that mix. The Devils had 5 or 6, and so that was always kind of why the reason why, like if Buffalo or Detroit had ever gotten into this and just said like, hey, they were,
that's what I feared. That's why I feared to go wild.
Right, those are two teams that have a bunch of guys that are similar to Holtz and Shakir, and they but they didn't. So it was pretty good. I mean, it was good business for Tom Fitzgerald. Like that's a deal that probably every general manager in the league, I'm sure if Mike Greer was on the other end, he'd do that deal in a heartbeat, right? Like this, because of the depth that they had built up and the situation that they're in, and the fact that Timo Meier is probably going to be awesome playing next to Jack Hughes or Nico Hischier. Like that's just a deal you do. And so, for the Sharks, it's like they got what the market would let them get, and then we'll see. Like I'm going to write about this in the next couple of days. Yesterday for the Sharks felt so eerily similar to me as the day the Devils traded Taylor Hall. Like just the return, the fan reaction. Oh no, what are we doing? And then you look at it now, and there won't be a single fan at Prudential Center their next home game that wishes they had Taylor Hall and not Dawson Mercer and Jonas Siegenthaler. So and neither of those guys were actually in the trade the day of. It was so this is kind of the deal for the Sharks. They've got to collect these package of goodies and figure out a way to turn all of that into something better someday soon.
Before we continue our discussion with Corey Masisak, I first want to get you guys hip to a product I use literally every day. So I started taking AG1 because I wanted to be happier. I wanted to be healthier. My body's a temple, and I got to start treating it as such. So what is the stuff? With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging, all of those things. So it's lifestyle is friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. Contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, while still tasting good. Supports better sleep quality and recovery, supports mental clarity and alertness. It's one thing that's best about Athletic Greens is that it uses best of the best products based on the latest science with constant product iterations and third-party testing. So right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with a convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look after your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune support and vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. And now, while we're on this topic of health, let me tell you about Built Bar. So looking for a delicious treat, but don't want to get all of that fat and calories, then you got to try a Built Bar. I know you got through the holiday season, and I'm pretty sure one of your resolutions is to eat happier and healthier. So you got to try Built. With Built, healthy is actually tasty. Seriously, they're so delicious. You won't think that they're good for you. Perfect for the New Year's resolution. What makes Built Bar so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. And they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built does it, but somehow, some way, these bars only contain 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait around to get a box. For years, I've been talking about ordering your Built Bars at Built.com. Now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right. Head to the nearest Walmart today, walk to the pharmacy section, and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. If you're close to Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, brownie batter, and churro. You can thank me later. You can also catch Built Bar as an official sponsor of Corey LaJoie as he races around the track during the NASCAR Cup Series. So shout out to all of my NASCAR fans. Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. Okay, let's get back to our discussion with Corey Masisak of The Athletic as we talk about Timo Meier and the perspective of the San Jose Sharks. Take it away. Right. And Dawson Mercer has been on a tear the last few games. So I was really afraid that the San Jose Sharks would have said, like, we'll do a 1-for-1 kind of swap. Give us Dawson Mercer. Because I was seeing the reports initially saying that Alexander Holtz wasn't involved. I saw another report saying that Yegor Sharangovich wasn't involved. I was like, does that mean Dawson Mercer is about to make his way to San Jose? Because I was fearing that he was just building up his trade capital. But we obviously know what the return was. So I'm asking you this as a writer, and I also want you to provide the perspective of maybe the general manager and the fan base. What did you think of this trade for the San Jose Sharks? Because you alluded to the fact that the San Jose Sharks, they're going to have to take bits and bits and try to work with it, similar to what the Devils did with Taylor Hall. So I want to hear your thoughts. Like, when you saw this trade first go down, do you think Mike Grier did a good job in terms of just building up the future for San Jose Sharks? Because clearly they are trying to rebuild.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was going to be very hard for him to get sort of a home run here. Like, actually, I was just talking to a couple of my other writing friends. I guess it was this morning. We were trying to come up with, like, when was the last time a player on this level was traded, and the team that got the futures back, like, their fan base was happy. Like, when was the last time a team, the Tanner Jeannot thing does not count. Like, it's not a, he makes $800,000. He's not. It's just not a. But Preds fans are ecstatic with that trade, but that doesn't count. But like, when was, because I actually was thinking that maybe it was when the Sharks traded for Erik Karlsson, because in hindsight that deal looks amazing for the Senators. But even then, even the day that the Sharks got Erik Karlsson, people were like, wait, that's all they gave up to get Erik Karlsson? Like, it was one good prospect and a first round pick, which everybody thought was going to be like a late pick, but then anyway. So look, I think he got, if you look at what Mark Stone went for, if you look at what Max Pacioretty went for, if you look at what Alex DeBrincat was traded for, I mean, the overall value of what he got back is about the same. They're all about the same.
I think people have the wrong connotation of like trades, and they think trade is like an eye for an eye kind of thing. It's rarely that, especially for like a big name player. So I was just like, look, even though the Devils do have these, they do have these assets, I don't expect for Tom Fitzgerald to break the bank for Timo Meier, especially, and this is something we're going to talk about just now, which is like Timo Meier, he's not extended yet. So it's just like the leverage isn't really with Mike Grier in this case. So like throughout the entirety of this year, did you think that the San Jose Sharks were going to try to their best to extend Timo Meier? Was that on the table to begin the year and just see where it goes? Or was the thought process always to like trade him away, whether it was during the trade deadline or maybe after the season, whatever the case might be? Because personally, when I did an episode back in December, I was just like, look, he's still relatively young. Yes, he's not the youngest guy on the roster, but he's not the oldest either. He's one of their best players. and I related it to Jesper Bradt's situation. I said if the Devils were performing badly, they would try their best to still extend Jesper Bratt because I don't think they would want to trade him because they want him a part of the future. So what was the mindset for the San Jose Sharks throughout the entirety of this year, knowing that Timo Meier was not extended?
Yeah. I mean, I think, I mean, I don't think he was ever going to sign here. And I don't know if that's like some of that might be lost a little bit with some Sharks fans who are like, well, why didn't they, there has been a very like, just look, he's 26 years old. Even if they're going to rebuild for 3 or 4 years, they'll still be young enough whenever they're good again. But
that's my that was my
right.
thought process. And I
but
talked
and
to Ryan
so, but I just think that like, they're I mean Mike Greer said basically like they haven't had any serious talks with Timo Meier about an extension. Like I think Mike Greer and Claude Lemieux, his agent, have talked a little bit here and there, just sort of like, hey, here's what's going on. But like they were the Sharks' long-term cap situation, even with trading Brent Burns and even with trading Timo Meier, is still a mess. And so adding another player and signing him until signing another player until he's 35 years old was only going to compound that mess. And so, I think they were going to keep him if the team was playing better. Like if let's say they were 10th in the East or 10th in the West or they were like a wild card team, they probably wouldn't trade him right now. They'd probably try to keep him and get to the playoffs and see what happens. But then they would probably look to trade him in the summer or again, like at the deadline next year. So I think everybody said they were open to it and everybody kind of said the right things all year. But when it gets down to it, like, Timo Meier is going to want a lot of money. Now, look, that's a whole separate conversation about like what is he going to get from the Devils? And, I personally think that he might take a little bit less to play for the Devils because because he knows he's in a winning situation and he knows he's in a place where he's got 2 centers that are going to help him score a whole bunch of goals. Whereas here, if he had stayed here, I think he might have been okay with staying here because he liked it here, but the team's going to be bad for a few years. And so like, I'd probably want some extra money to play for a bad team, to be honest. So, and I think he might've felt the same way. Yeah. So I don't think it's sort of been out there as like, well, maybe, but like I think that both sides kind of closed the door on it over the past few days. And maybe now that we're past it, the door was never really open anyway.
Okay, so my final few questions. Mike Greer says it's not a rebuild. What's your thought process on that? Because, and I also want to hear like the thought pattern he had during the course of just handling Timo Meier, and do you think the Sharks are rebuilding now and they're just hoping that maybe they get better next year? Well, what's the direction for the San Jose Sharks is my question.
Yeah, like it's all very semantic. They are not. He said, so the question that was asked to him was, Mike, are you in a rebuild? And he said, I don't think we're in a full-on rebuild. And then later on, he said, you can call it a retool or a rebuild or whatever reword you want. So, look, they're not. Their strict definition of a rebuild is what the Chicago Blackhawks are doing. They're not doing that. They're not gonna, tear the thing down. They're not, at least for now, they haven't, the Blackhawks were trading, they traded like a 23-year-old and a 21-year-old. Like they're not, they're trying to kind of flip this thing kind of like, whatever word you want to call it. They're not going to be good next year. They're not, it might be 2 or 3 or 4 years, but they're not necessarily trying to intentionally lose games either. So, but look, they have lost a lot of games this year, and that is going to lead to, unless they go on some weird hot streak here after they trade Timo Meier, which I wouldn't bet on that. They're going to get a high pick in this draft, and that guy is going to become, kind of the face of the new. They've got William Eklund, they've got Tomas Bordeleau, they've got Shakir Mukhamadullin, and then this kid is going to, whoever the kid is going to go on top of that. And then he might be a bad again next year, and that kid might go with that kid, and then all of a sudden they're on to something. And we'll see how long it takes to get from, it's kind of where the Devils did the full rebuild, right? Like they did the whole, we're blowing it up, we're tearing it down to the studs. It took a long time to get back. But they also got, those two guys that are going to be the, co-faces of the franchise for the next decade. So, we'll see where this goes. But it's very, look, I get why they don't want to call it what everybody else calls it. But the fact of the matter is that they're in for a lot of long days, whether it's 2 years or 4 years, we'll see.
Okay, last couple questions. So having covered the Devils before and now seeing them now, I just want your quick thought process, because I don't know how long you've covered the Devils, but I'm sure you've covered them through some tough times. And now here they are trading for Timo Meier, the team that you currently cover over at The Athletic. What's it like just seeing the Devils just form this sort of team?
Yeah, no, look, it's I started covering them in March 2018, which so I guess I'm coming up on, it was 5 years ago. Yeah, look, whenever I first started, they were really good. It was that, it was the end of the Taylor Hall MVP season. They were, look, they made the playoffs 10 games after I was there. But but yeah, right. Since then, it was a lot of long nights, a lot of writing about when this day might come, and now it's here. Look, they're really good. They're, of all the teams that I've seen in person this year, the Devils and the Bruins and well, actually I should say the Hurricanes too. So I guess those three, they're the teams that when they've really kind of stood out. Like, man, they were just kind of all over the Sharks, and they just didn't. So yeah, no, I think they're, I don't know what's going to happen in April. Like it's going to be the first time through this with all of them. Like I covered the Capitals like in Alex Ovechkin and Nicholas Backstrom's first year that they made the playoffs, and it was kind of the same thing. It was like they were this new powerhouse on the block, and they were super exciting and super fun, and they lost in the first round of the playoffs. So it happens. Like it just, it's a completely different deal. I mean, Timo Meier has played in the playoffs. It's been a while, but he got a couple of playoff runs in there before they sort of fell off. So he'll help. And Dougie Hamilton's played in the playoffs. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think they're
last one of a couple Stanley Cups.
Yeah, no. Like I think they're it's going to be an interesting. They're going to be very good for a long time. Like this, like I said, this was. I mean, you could see the day that the ping pong ball bounced their way for Jack Hughes. This was coming. Now, the funny thing to me, the kind of the funny / ironic thing about the whole process has been that once they got Jack Hughes, a lot of people thought like, okay, this is it, we're good. Like whenever they traded for PK Subban and they made all those moves that summer, it was kind of like hey, maybe the rebuild is over. And then there was 2 more years of crap. And as it turns out, actually, I think personally, those 2 years of more pain are the reason why they could be good for a really long time, because I just think that adding Luke Hughes and adding Simone Nemec to this group once they're already rolling, that's like the difference between being a team that might make 1 or 2 playoff runs versus a team that might make 8, right? Like I think actually adding Luke, if Luke is as good as it seems like he's going to be, that kind of changes the ceiling of what they could be over the next decade or so.
Last question. I had the chance to speak with Timo Meier last night during his Zoom press conference. I think you were present for that.
A little bit of it, yeah.
What can Devils fans expect from Timo Meier, playing wise and also personality wise?
Yeah, he's really good. He is. How do I put it? I mean, look, they had Taylor Hall was in New Jersey for a couple of years. The Devils fans have seen what. Patrick Elias went back and forth between wing and center. Anyway, they've seen what happened, like what one of the best wings in the league can do when he's like at the peak of his powers. And like Timo has been awesome the last 2 seasons. He had a couple of years in there where he was not, but the last year and this year he has been, consistently one of the best players on the ice every night he plays. I just, like he scores. He's not humongous, but he's thick and he plays big. And like, so he's like kind of like I call him like a modern power forward. He's not like necessarily going out there, and he's not Cam Neely. He's not going to fight 20 times or whatever, but he just does a lot of things that like the kind of the best power forwards in the league do now. He's all, for as kind of big and strong as he is, he's also quite fast. he's really good on the rush. Like I mean, just thinking of how the Devils play and how much they play off the rush, like he's just gonna fit so well with that. Like he's really, really good at like kind of getting a pass right at the offensive blue line and then taking a defenseman one-on-one and getting to the net. It's just, I can just envision him, whether it's Nico or Jack, they're going to enjoy having that. I can see the third guy on that line coming in and just scooping up a bunch of rebounds too, just from whenever he bowls his way to the net like that. Yeah, he's really good on the power play, and it's not like he has to play in one position. He's kind of good wherever the Sharks have put him. He's, defensively responsible enough. He's not like the best defensive forward in the league, but he's not a problem at that end of the ice. And yeah, no, I mean, I just think, look, if you were going to drop, I mean, if you're going to drop given what they already have, like given that they already have Hughes and Hischier and Bratt, like if you wanted, like, here's what the fourth best forward or the third best forward on this team should be, it should be a guy like Timo, and there he is. So personality wise, he's a lot like Nico. I mean, it's funny, they're from different parts of the country, and so it's like, I think I made a joke about this on Twitter, maybe like the first time that the two teams played. Like they're from, Switzerland's a small country, but they have very different accents, the two of them, whenever they speak, like whether it's like Swiss German or French or whatever. So like, I mean, Timo even said, like, sometimes I can't understand what Nico is saying. So I kind of imagine, given that like Nico is from the very southern part of Switzerland, like down by the Alps, I just kind of imagine like Nico having this like New Orleans Cajun accent that people can't understand whenever they're from like up by Zurich. But he's pretty similar. He's not like he's not going to be like the most personable guy on the team, but he's also not going to be like, he's just going to kind of be in the middle. And he's been really good to deal with, especially this year. Like, look, the trade stuff and the contract stuff started with Timo like in training camp, or like a month, like 2 weeks after training camp. So he's been dealing with it all year. And he's been really good. He's never been like, don't ask me about this, leave me alone, any of that stuff. He's just kind of just taking it all in stride. I mean, look, he knows he's on a pretty good contract right now, and he knows he's going to be on an even better one in a few months. So he's, life's going to be pretty good for him wherever he's playing. But I think he's going to be, he seemed pretty excited last night. So I'm imagining that a guy that plays the way he does, getting to play with Jack or Nico for the next 8 or 9 years is going to be a good thing for him.
Yep, and I've actually spoken to Nico before. Very soft-spoken, but very knowledgeable about the game. Corey, thank you so much for taking time to talk Timo Meier and provide a perspective from the San Jose Sharks. And everyone, check out his articles for The Athletic. And Corey, the pleasure is always mine, my man.
Thanks for having me again, Trey. Anytime. Well, so maybe there'll be something else to talk about sometime soon.
Aaron Carlson, maybe?
Yeah, well, yeah, geez, that would be something. Yeah.